Do you want to do cyber sci-fi magic VFX like this? Here's how you do it. It consists of many booleans, some geometry nodes, three meshes for wireframe, emission, and original solid mesh, and lastly, particle effects. Here's how to make it. Let's start by creating our three meshes. Wireframe, very easy. Duplicate your mesh, apply wireframe modifier to it, adjust the settings to your liking. I like to use relative setting since it makes the wireframe nice and juicy. Set it to a very emissive shader. Now we have our glowing wireframe. Second mesh is our in-between emission. For this, I'll duplicate the original mesh and set it to very emissive material. Okay, next step, geometry nodes. So geometry nodes will help us dissolve our wireframe in and out of the scene. The way it works is by scaling each face from 0 to 1. This way it looks like the wireframe is dissolving into the world. For this, we're gonna need to create a dissolver mesh for geonodes to use. The way it works is from vertex, so I noticed it's best to make a super dense mesh with vertices inside of it. So this is what I used, subdivided planes stacked a few times on top of each other. I don't actually understand how geometry nodes work, but this goes here and this goes kind of like this, and I think these values are your distance from vertex scale thingies. I'll link the original tutorial I followed in the description. For now, just copy my nodes. Okay, now test if it works. Perfect. Next step. Booleans. We need solid and glow boolean. Solid will be our solid mesh. It's nothing special, just a normal mesh with boolean. If it's inside the boolean box, the mesh will appear. Glow is going to be a thin pancake slice. This will be the emissive part that will emit particles and feel magical. Warning! When it comes to booleans, we must make sure the mesh is watertight. This means no holes anywhere. To find holes easily, you can enable face orientation and find the red areas. Make sure there's 0 red areas. Otherwise, the boolean will struggle to cut the mesh properly. If you can, try to keep it as one solid object. For bool, I recommend setting it to fast option since it's more accurate and faster. Lastly, particles. This step is kind of easy. Make sure to use modifier stat so the particles can update and be in sync with your modifiers like boolean. Here are my settings for the particles, but I do tend to adjust them per scene. Make sure you enable random scale so that the particles vary in size, looking more natural and magical. The lifetime is set to about 5 to 15 frames, and also set to 0.5 random, which means 50% of them will die off sooner than our frame limit. Keep in mind the start and end of the particle time. It should be around the time when the in-between mesh comes into existence and the end when the mesh disappears. The number of particles is also important because it will spread out between the time of the animation. So make sure it's not too many or too little. And now just a pinch of post-processing, some chromatic aberration, color grading, and glare, and it's finished! Here are all the layers combined. I hope this mini tutorial is useful, and I can't wait to see what you make with this effect.